Unconventional defenders. The starship Defiance hung in the void of space, its bulky silhouette outlined against the distant stars. Unlike the sleek vessels of newer fleets, the Defiance was built with one philosophy in mind: survivability over aesthetics. Its hull was studded with backup communication arrays, manual access hatches, and redundant thruster systems that gave it the appearance of a mechanical porcupine. Captain Elena Reyes stood on the bridge, her dark eyes reflecting the glow of nearby monitors. At 43, she'd spent more than half her life in space, earning a reputation for keeping ships running long past their expected service dates. The crew called her the mechanic behind her back, a nickname she secretly loved. "Captain, we've got an anomaly at Sector 7, reported Lieutenant Kwan, the ship's sensor officer. His fingers danced across the holographic display, enlarging the section of space where an unusual energy signature had appeared. "Classification?" Helena asked, leaning forward. "Unknown, ma'am. Nothing like this in our database." Helena's pulse quickened. After decades of space exploration, humanity had encountered plenty of cosmic phenomena, but never intelligent alien life. The possibility had always existed, but now, "It's stabilizing," Kwan announced. I think it's a ship, and it's massive." The bridge fell silent as a vessel emerged from what appeared to be a localized distortion field. Unlike the practical, almost industrial design of human ships, this craft gleamed like polished obsidian, its surface unblemished by external components. It moved with impossible grace for its size, as though the normal rules of inertia didn't apply. "They're hailing us," Communications Officer Rivera said, her voice barely above a whisper. Elena straightened her uniform. "Put them through." The main view screen flickered, revealing a humanoid figure with iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Its eyes were large, solid orbs of amber without pupils. When it spoke, its mouth didn't move. Instead, a melodic voice seemed to emanate from everywhere at once. "I am High Commander Zextal of the Silurian Empire. You have entered territory claimed by our people." Elena stepped forward. "Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth starship Defiance. We weren't aware this sector was claimed by any civilization. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations." The alien skin rippled with bands of blue and purple. "Diplomatic relations require parties of equal standing. Our scans indicate your vessel is primitive. Are you the vanguard of your species or merely stragglers?" The condescension in the alien's tone was unmistakable. Elena fought to keep her expression neutral. "We represent the United Earth Alliance, a coalition of human colonies spanning 12 star systems. The Defiance is a frontier exploration vessel." "Interesting," Zextal responded. "Our historians will be fascinated to document your developmental stage. Your ship design is peculiar, so many redundancies and manual systems. Most species outgrow such inefficient approaches within their first century of space travel." Elena felt her crew bristling around her. "We found our approach serves us well in unpredictable situations." "A sign of technological immaturity," the alien replied. "True advancement eliminates unpredictability. The Silurian Empire has existed for 12 millennia, and our ships haven't experienced a critical failure in over 3,000 years." "Impressive," Elena conceded. "We'd be interested in learning more about your civilization. Perhaps we could arrange a diplomatic exchange." Zextal's skin shifted to a deep purple. "We accept. You will be permitted to dock at our nearest outpost for preliminary cultural assessment." As the transmission ended, Elena turned to her executive officer, Commander Takeda. "Thoughts?" "They're arrogant," Takeda said frankly. "But with technology like that, maybe they've earned it." "Maybe," Elena murmured. "But something doesn't feel right. Prepare a full crew briefing and make sure our emergency protocols are refreshed. I want all systems at optimal performance before we dock." 3 days later, Elena and a small team sat in a pristine chamber aboard the Silurian outpost. The walls seemed to be made of the same seamless material as their ships, with light emanating from nowhere and everywhere. Across from them, Zextal and 3 other Galactic regarded the humans with what Elena could only interpret as scientific curiosity. "Your propulsion technology relies on reaction mass," one Silurian asked, their skin shifting to an inquisitive yellow. "How do you manage long-distance travel?" "We've developed efficient fusion drives and hibernation systems," Elena explained. "Not as elegant as your distortion technology, but effective." "And these manual override systems," Zextal interjected, displaying holographic schematics of the Defiance that they'd somehow acquired. "They consume considerable space and resources. Why not trust your artificial intelligence systems?" "Because AIs can fail," Elena replied simply. "Space is unpredictable." A sound like chiming crystal emanated from the Silurians. Laughter, Elena realized. "Space is only unpredictable when you lack sufficient understanding," Zextal said. "The Silurian approach is perfection through superior design and flawless execution. Your human approach of redundancy suggests a fundamental mistrust of your own creations, or respect for the unknown," Elena countered. The diplomatic exchange continued for hours, with the Silurians explaining their advanced technologies while growing increasingly dismissive of human achievements. They spoke of their perfect communication networks, their flawless defense systems, their society free of conflict and inefficiency. As the humans were escorted back to their shuttle, Lieutenant Commander Ortiz, the ship's tactical officer, whispered to Elena, "They think we're children playing with toys." Elena nodded grimly. "And that worries me." Over the next week, the Defiance crew learned more about the Silurians. They were an ancient species that had mastered space travel millennia before humans left Earth. They had encountered many other species throughout the galaxy, most less advanced than themselves. The Silurians spoke of these encounters as guiding these species toward proper development. Elena's concerns deepened when Lieutenant Quan discovered hidden information in the data that Silurians had shared, files that showed what happened to species that resisted Silurian guidance. "They've been methodically absorbing other civilizations," Elena said as they reviewed the evidence in the secure briefing room. "Not through war, usually. They establish contact, share some technology, make the other species dependent on them, and then gradually take control." "And if a species resists?" asked Takeda. Elena pointed to the screen showing the remains of a once thriving system called Viventary. "They make examples." "We need to warn Earth," said Rivera. "Already done," Elena replied. "But the message will take weeks to reach home. Until then, we play along and gather as much intelligence as we can." The next day, High Commander Zextal invited Elena to observe Silurian military exercises, a display of friendship, the alien called it. Elena watched as 50 Silurian ships moved in perfect formation, executing maneuvers with precision that human fleets could only dream of. Their tactics were flawless, their coordination impeccable. "Impressive," Elena admitted. "This is merely a basic exercise," said Zextal. "The Silurians understand true strategy, not the chaos that humans call warfare." "What do you mean?" asked Elena, keeping her tone curious rather than defensive. "We've studied your military history," Zextal explained. "Your generals praise adaptability and unpredictability. You value the ability to, how do you say, think on your feet. True strategy requires perfect planning and execution, not desperate improvisation." As Elena watched the Silurian ships move like a single organism, she thought about Earth's history, about battles won by breaking formation, about victories claimed through surprise and adaptation, about the countless times that humanity's desperate improvisation. "That's not protection," Takeda said grimly. "That's control." Elena nodded. Earth Command agrees. They've rejected the demands. The door to the bridge slid open as Lieutenant Commander Ortiz entered. The tactical officer's reputation for unconventional thinking had earned her both commendations and reprimands throughout her career. "Captain, you wanted to see me." "Yes," Elena gestured to the screen. We're being assigned to protect the outer colonies. Earth expects the Tylorians to make a show of force. Ortiz studied the message, her dark eyes narrowing. They'll target smaller outposts first, make an example without risking a full-scale war. That's what Command thinks too. We're heading to New Terra, our most distant colony and the most vulnerable. 3 days later, the Defiance arrived at New Terra, a small mining colony with only basic defenses. They weren't alone for long. Within hours, 5 Tylorian warships appeared at the edge of the system. They're hailing us, Rivera reported. The main screen flickered to life, revealing Zextal, now adorned with what appeared to be ceremonial armor. Captain Rice, you will remove your vessel from this system immediately. This colony now falls under Silurian protection. Elena stood tall. This is a human colony on a planet we discovered and settled. We reject your claim. Zextal's amber eyes seemed to glow brighter. Your rejection is noted, Captain, but meaningless. One human ship cannot stand against even a small Silurian force. Your strategy of placing outdated vessels as defenders is puzzling. Perhaps there's more to our strategy than you understand, Elena replied calmly. There is no depth to primitive thinking, Zextal said dismissively. You have 6 hours to depart. As the screen went dark, Takeda turned to Elena. 5 ships against 1 isn't great odds. 5 against 5 isn't bad, though, Elena said with a slight smile. Takeda raised an eyebrow. 5. The Defiance counts as 5 in my book, Elena replied. Those Silurian ships are perfectly designed, but they've never faced anything like us. Ortiz, I want unusual tactics, the kind that would make an academy instructor fail you. Those are my specialty, Captain, Ortiz replied with a grin. 6 hours later, the Tylorian ships approached in perfect formation, their sleek hulls gleaming in the light of New Terra's sun as they moved with synchronized precision. They're charging weapons, Quan reported. Launch our decoys, ordered Elena. The Defiance released 4 small objects that appeared on scanners as full-sized ships, a simple trick, but one that might work. The Isolorians are adjusting formation, Ortiz reported. They're spreading out to engage all targets. Elena leaned forward. Now take us in full thrust. Then cut engines on my mark. The Defiance surged forward, accelerating directly toward the Lid Silurian ship. At the last moment, Elena shouted, Mark. The engines went silent, and the ship's momentum carried it forward, while its heat signature vanished from sensors. An old smuggler's trick that Ortiz had suggested. They've lost us, Takeda said with surprise. The Silurian ships fired on the decoys, their perfect formation becoming a liability as they focused on targets that weren't there. Bring us alongside the lead ship, Elena ordered. Weapons ready. The Defiance drifted silently into position. On the view screen, they could see the Silurian vessel up close. Beautiful, elegant, and completely unaware of their presence. Fire, Elena commanded. The Defiance's weapons might not have been the most advanced, but at this range, they didn't need to be. The Silurian ship's perfect hull cracked under the barrage, its systems failing. The other Silurian ships are turning to engage, Quan warned. Evasive pattern Omega, Elena ordered. Ortiz had designed Omega patterns specifically for this encounter. Instead of the smooth, predictable evasions that most ships used, it involved random thruster bursts, sudden stops, and changes in direction that defied tactical sense. On screen, they watched as the Tylorian weapons fired with precision at where the Defiance should have been based on normal flight patterns, but the human ship was never where it was expected to be. Their targeting systems can't adapt, Ortiz said with satisfaction. They're designed for perfection against predictable opponents. The battle raged for 20 minutes. When it ended, 2 Silurian ships were disabled, another severely damaged, and the remaining 2 retreating at high speed. The bridge crew cheered, but Elena raised her hand for silence. This was just a test, she said. They wanted to see how we fight. And what did they learn? asked Takia. That we don't fight the way they expect, Elena replied. That might confuse them for now, but they'll adapt. On the damaged Silurian flagship, Zextal stared at the battle recordings with growing frustration. The human vessel had moved in patterns that defied logic. It had shut down systems in the middle of combat, a suicidal tactic by Silurian standards. It had fired from positions no proper warship would take. Inefficient, Zextal muttered. Wasteful. Illogical. Yet the humans had won. High Commander, a subordinate approached cautiously. The Imperial Council requests your report. Zextal's eyes narrowed. Tell them the humans are more unpredictable than anticipated, but it changes nothing. Their victory was luck, not strategy. And if they continue to be lucky, then we will bring more ships, Zextal said firmly. Luck fails against overwhelming force. Perfect execution cannot be defeated by chaos. 2 weeks later, the Defiance received an urgent transmission. 12 Silurian warships had entered the new Terra system. Elena immediately ordered battle stations. 12 against 1, murmured Rivera. Those are impossible odds. Impossible by conventional thinking, Elena replied. Lieutenant Commander Ortiz, what's your assessment? Ortiz studied the tactical display. Their formation is different this time. They've spread out to prevent us from using the same trick. They're learning. Elena nodded. So must we. What options do we have? I've been studying old Earth naval battles, before ships had computers or even engines. They fought using wind and tide. We don't have wind in space, Takeda pointed out. Ortiz smiled. No, but we have gravity wells, solar radiation, and debris fields. The Silurians move like every part of space is the same. They don't use the environment. Show me, Elena ordered. 30 minutes later, the Defiance positioned itself between the oncoming Silurian fleet and the colony, a single ship facing 12. Zextal's face appeared on screen. Captain Rice, your persistence is noted but futile. Surrender your colony and withdraw. I have a counteroffer, Elena replied calmly. Leave human space, and we won't destroy your fleet. Zextal's expression didn't change, but his voice hardened. Your overconfidence will be your undoing. The view screen went dark. They're powering weapons, Quan reported. Execute Phase 1, Elena ordered. The Defiance fired its engines at full power, racing toward the approaching fleet. On the Silurian command ship, Zextal watched with confusion. The human vessel is on a direct collision course, a subordinate reported. They wouldn't sacrifice their only ship, Zextal reasoned. It must be a feint. Maintain formation and prepare to fire. The Defiance continued its charge, accelerating to dangerous speeds. Now, Elena commanded. When they were just moments from impact, the human ship abruptly cut its main engines and fired maneuvering thrusters, sending it into a spinning dive that barely missed the lead Silurian ship while releasing a cloud of metallic particles in its wake. What was that? Demanded Zextal as the particles obscured their sensors. The answer came seconds later as the Defiance, now behind its Silurian formation, fired its weapons directly at the debris cloud. The metallic particles amplified the energy, creating a blinding flash that temporarily disabled the Silurian ship's sensitive targeting systems. Phase 2, Elena ordered. The Defiance raced toward the nearby asteroid field, drawing 5 Silurian ships in pursuit, while the others remained temporarily blinded. The human ship weaved through the asteroid field, taking paths too narrow for the larger Silurian vessels. 2 Silurian ships collided with asteroids, taking severe damage but continuing the pursuit. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Patel worked frantically in the engine room. The Defiance had taken hits during their initial pass, and systems were failing. Coolant leak in Section 4, shouted her assistant. Patel grabbed a manual patch kit. Old school fix, she muttered, applying a compound that immediately hardened over the leak. It wasn't in any repair manual, but it would hold. On the bridge, Elena watched as the remaining 7 Silurian ships regained their systems and moved to cut off the Defiance's escape from the asteroid field. "We're surrounded," Quan said, his voice tight. "Good," Elena replied. "Execute Phase 3. The Defiance suddenly shut down all systems except life support, appearing dead in space. The 12 Silurian ships approached cautiously, their formation now ragged after the earlier engagement. The human vessel appears disabled. A Silurian officer reported to Zextal. "Shall we finish them?" Zextal studied the sensor readings. "Something isn't right. Their power readings are too low. Scan for." His order came too late. Hidden among the asteroids were the mining charges that the Defiance had placed earlier. Simple explosives normally used by the colonists to break up asteroids for mining. "Detonate," Elena ordered. The charges exploded, sending thousands of asteroid fragments in all directions. The Silurian ships, clustered together around what they thought was disabled prey, suddenly found themselves in a hailstorm of rocky debris. "Evasive maneuvers," Zextal shouted. But the Silurian ships weren't designed for quick, unpredictable movements. 3 vessels took critical hits, their perfect hulls punctured in multiple places. The others scattered, their formation breaking completely. "Now Patel," Elena called over the intercom. In the engine room, Patel bypassed safety protocols and rerouted emergency power. The Defiance roared back to life, its weapons targeting the disorganized Silurian ships one by one. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it ended, 5 Silurian ships were destroyed, 4 disabled, and the remaining 3, including Zextal's flagship, were retreating at maximum speed. On the bridge of the Defiance, the atmosphere was one of exhausted triumph. Systems were failing throughout the ship, emergency repairs were holding critical components together, and the crew was operating on adrenaline and determination. "Damage report?" Elena asked. "We've lost 40% of our offensive capability. Life support is running on backups, and engineering says we've got maybe 6 hours before we need a proper space dock," Takeda replied. "But we're still here." Elena nodded. "And the colony?" "Untouched," Quan confirmed with a tired smile. Days later, as the Defiance limped back toward the nearest human repair facility, they received a transmission from Earth Command. The Silurian Empire had withdrawn all forces from human space and requested formal diplomatic negotiations. "They're reassessing their understanding of us," Elena told her gathered officers. "Their entire strategy is based on perfect execution and overwhelming force. They never considered that improvisation and adaptation might be valid approaches." "Will they be back?" asked Rivera. "Eventually," Elena replied. "But next time, they'll approach us differently. Not as primitives to be guided, but as equals to be respected." As the Defiance continued its journey home, its engines humming with a rhythm that was distinctly imperfect but reliable, Elena thought about the lessons of their encounter. The Silurians had sought perfection and found it limiting. Humans embraced imperfection and found it liberating. Perhaps someday both species would learn from each other, combining Silurian precision with human adaptability to create something greater than either could achieve alone. But until then, humanity would continue to do what it had always done: survive and thrive in an unpredictable universe, through ingenuity, resilience, and the willingness to improvise when faced with the impossible.